That's the question. Why do women cheat? That's the focus of this edition of It's Your Call. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Lynn Doyle. You know, so many times we hear about men who have stepped out of a relationship, and we are the first ones to criticize them. And yet, as I'm learning, doing research for this show, women are equally as bad at being adulterers. So we're finding out why they do that, what the causes are. We've invited some more guest experts to join us now, including Ruthie Weisberg, who is a journalist and a pop culture commentator. She's been a frequent guest on It's Your Call, and you can find her at ruthweisberg.com. Also, an old friend of the show is with us, George James. He's a staff therapist for the Council for Relationships, which is located in Philadelphia. Good to have you guys here.
Nice to be back, Lynn.
George, I got to turn to you right away. Okay, and all this girl talk that we've got going on here, I asked the question, are men forgiving of infidelity? Because so many times when we hear these high-profile cases of infidelity, the women take the men back. I seem to think men aren't as forgiving. What do you find in your practice?
Well, typically you'll hear that guys won't take women back, right? Because it's defeating to their ego, they feel bad, or how can I really be a man? But what I've found out in my offices, when we get couples together who are invested, they're willing to do the work to try and repair their relationship.
Really? See, that comes as a surprise, even though the statistics that we're showing today show that 31% of those couples who had infidelity in their relationship do end up staying together. So it's possible to move on?
It is possible, and I've had clients on both sides, male or female, who decided to cheat, and the couple were able to work through it. But it all depends on how much they're willing to commit to the relationship and the process of working it through.
So I think that's the key word too, like invested. You know, like if the couple is invested, they'll do the work. Because I see the same thing in my practice as well.
I got to ask, though, if they were invested in the relationship, why did they step out of it to begin with?
You know,
okay.
One of the things I see is that sometimes it gets to the place where they make whatever choice to cheat, and that is almost a wake-up call of realizing that the grass wasn't greener with the other person, and that what they have is that important, and they want to get back and reinvest. All
right, Ruthie, you know that. There are a lot of different reasons, as Deborah's explained, why women cheat. But in your research, what have you found out? What are some classic examples of why a woman has decided to commit adultery?
Well, being the journalist that I am, and being in media like you are, we both are, we get to cover a whole host of topics, and we have some really incredible sources and leads that we've met through the years. And I've read your book, very, very impressive, Deborah. And even though you talk about 11 reasons, I think it boils down to 2.
Okay.
Why do we make a decision? Why do we make a purchase? Why do we make the things that we do? Because we want to or we need to. And in my realm of experience, it can be anything, as you mentioned earlier in the last segment. Sometimes women feel like they're not getting their needs met. And I know a situation where a woman is getting in touch with her creative muse, especially if the children are getting older. They're in school, they're moving on. Now she can get in touch with her own creative spirit, but then she has a husband that says, don't do your art, I need you to do the kitchen. So there's that conflict there, and then maybe she'll join a group of like-minded people who share their arts, and then they're getting the feedback, the critique, the strokes, the attention.
And there's someone there to whom they can relate.
Tell me about what you're doing.
You're wonderful.
What are you working on these days? And then you go home and they're like, do the dishes. So they feel like they're getting the validation and the perks in that realm.
All right. See, what I'm finding here is that we have a common theme, and it seems like when women are cheating, it's because they haven't gotten the kind of attention. You can call it needs being met or whatever, but it just seems like they need some attention.
And it's the attention. Sometimes it's not even what you're going to do in the bedroom or elsewhere. It's just somebody that's paying attention to you, who's really devoted to you and is taking an active emotional investment in who you are and what you can become. And that's very, very heady and juicy, isn't it?
One of the things
it's an aphrodisiac.
Yes.
One of the things I've seen also is that at one point that was okay. Go do the dishes. She was all right with that. And then there's a life change, life transition where that's not okay anymore. I'm a different person and I need new things. I'm not okay with 10% attention. I want maybe 50%.
I don't think, no offense to males, but I don't think males respond very well to that. I see a lot of, sort of, gender role stuff too, and I'm sure you see that, where if the individual is in that role, the female's in that role for, the duration of their relationship, then all of a sudden kind of, wants to kind of find herself, which happens often, the male doesn't really know how to deal with that very well. And it causes problems in the relationship.
Well,
the
see,
last
we have
segment you
different
talked about-
expectations,
yeah,
right?
mhm.
Because I mean, honestly, it's like women like the whole romance and the whole being wooed, where men are like, okay, let's get to it, you know.
Remember that line in City Slickers with Billy Crystal? They're on the horse. He's with the late Bruno Kirby, and he says, you know, when it comes to sex, women need a reason, men need a place. I think you can distill it right down to that. Yeah.
So how do we overcome that, though? I mean, it's a basic difference between men and women. It's why we're from Venus and you guys are from Mars.
Well, you know,
how do we get over it?
I think what happens is a lot of couples are unaware of the signs, you know, that something is going on. I think when we talk about a lot of guys, we don't really see that something is wrong until it's way too late. And now some of that might be what we're used to and how we're taught about how to be with each other.
Are you guys just dense?
No, I would never say that, not at all. But I think a lot of guys are so used to a certain way of being, and that by the time they recognize they need to change, and they might be willing to and want to, but it might be a little bit too late.
I would agree with that. I see that a lot. But the other thing also is that, you know, a relationship can be healthy. I mean, we see that too, where like males do meet females' needs, you know, and it can work really well. But as a relationship, you know, specialist and how we deal with these things, you have to continually work at it. I mean, you have to continually put the effort into the relationship and be deliberate. I always tell my clients to be deliberate with your relationship if you want a healthy relationship.
Don't you find, though, that's, I think, what frustrates people is that they don't want to have to work at something so hard. They just want it to be easy. It was easy at the beginning. Why does it have to be so hard? I have to work at work. I have to work around the house. I have to work raising my children. God, do I have to work this hard at a relationship?
And yet we don't want to be
Why
a mind
isn't it
reader when it
easier?
comes to our partners any more than they should be a mind reader when it comes to our needs. It's a matter of like making the time and saying, this is important to me, let's see if we can do this. I think at some level maybe women want to get caught.
Really?
I'm going to put that out there.
Explain that.
Well,
Explain,
I
Lucy.
disagree with that.
Well, and I'll
I
tell you
wouldn't
why,
disagree.
because sometimes, and I know someone that should be more discreet in where and how she's having some of her affairs and everything. And I think at some level she wants her husband to say, see, I've been telling you this whole time I need something. It starts a dialogue. Yeah. And as you said, if they're on the same page.
It could start an ugly dialogue.
Yes,
it really
but
could.
here's the thing, though. It's passion. I think the worst response is when somebody says, whatever. If you get somebody that's full of passion, at least you've got something to work with.
Okay, on that note, I have to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to talk more about infidelity, what causes it, why men cheat, and how the reasons for their cheating are different from women. All of that and your personal stories right after this.